Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. It's rainy season here in Vancouver. I didn't get a lot of chance to go out and take photographs, and that's why I started a relatively more ambitious project, which is to compare and contrast the many Leica 35 Summicron, specifically Summicron f2 lenses that they have been producing throughout the years. Now, because that project involves a lot of lenses, a lot of testing, a lot of photos to organize and compare, so it would take a little bit of time. In the meantime, well, in this drizzling and gloomy afternoon, what better ways to, spend time than with you guys talking about Leica lenses. So yeah, I thought it would be a great time for me to give you guys a brief introduction of the upcoming more serious comparison video. Leica started to produce the 35 Summicron for their M mount cameras in the late 1950s. So the first lens they produced is this version 1 Summicron right here. The maximum aperture, of course, is f2. It's made up of 8 glass elements. That's why sometimes people refer to it as 8 elements. The characteristics of this lens, I would say, is it's really sharp in the center of the frame. Comparable to most of the modern day Leica glasses, it's got a lower contrast than all of the other lenses here, and it flares a lot. So yeah, I will go into details about the optical quality in the next video. So in this video, I'm just going to briefly talk about their rendering characteristics, and build-wise, it's probably one of the best made Summicron lenses because at that period of time, Leica really do over-engineer a lot of their products, like the Leica M3. This lens here is no exception. It's built like a tank. Once properly serviced, like this lens here, I brought it to Kendo Camera in Japan for service. It costs quite a bit of money, but I would say it's well worth it because now the lens feels so smooth, even better than some of the brand new Leica lenses I bought throughout the years. That's 8 element for you. Now, a lot of people have concerns about buying used lenses. Rightfully so, because this lens is notoriously difficult to find a mint and good copy, and also because of, I guess, the build quality. It's sort of like a collector's item these days, and a lot of people are willing to pay thousands of dollars for it. So a good alternative would be this Summaron lens here. It looks actually like a twin brother to the Summicron. They're exactly the same if you look at the lens barrel. The only difference is, of course, the Summicron goes up to f2, while the Summaron only goes up to f2.8. And you can see that the front element of the Summicron is quite a bit larger. But other than that, they look identical and they feel identical, meaning the Summaron here is equally well built. So if you just want to enjoy or experience the build quality of the 8 element, but you don't want to pay a premium for that, this is a great alternative. And it's also very sharp wide open, a little bit sharper than the Summicron, dare I say. It's a bit more contrasty than the 8 element, but compared to modern Leica lenses, it's still got this relatively low contrast look. I simply love this lens because I don't use 35 lenses for portraits and shoot at f2 that often. So I would say this lens is a very good replacement of the 8 element. Now, in the late 1960s, Leica introduced the Summicron 6 element. It's called 6 element because there's only 6 glass element in it. This lens is sort of like a black sheep in this Summicron lineup because it's probably the least expensive in the second-hand market, and not a lot of people treat this lens equally as its older brother, the 8 element, or its younger brother, the 7 element, which I've already talked quite a bit about on this channel. Well, the 6 element, it's not as well built as the 8 element. You can feel it right away. It's produced in a time frame where Leica is limiting their budget. It feels more plasticky. It's built out of aluminum, but pretty sure there's like plastic pieces in it. It's lightweight, and it's certainly not as sharp as the 8 element from my observations. That might be a reflection of the simpler lens design here, but actually it's a good buy for a lot of people out there because it's a relatively affordable lens and it's still a Leica Summicron lens, and it certainly renders like one. So I would say it's a steal of a lens if you can find one in good condition with a reasonable price tag, and usually you should be able to. Now, in the late 1970s, Leica added one more glass element back into the lens. Hence, we have the 7 element, also known as the king of bokeh. I've talked a lot about this lens in my channel already. It comes in 2 flavors. This one is black, the aluminum version, and the other one here is silver, the brass version. I got both copies here because I simply love this lens that much. I actually enjoy using the black version of the lens a little bit more because it's quite a bit lighter than the silver brass version. The rendering characteristic of this lens is that it's more contrasty than the Summicrons that came before it, hence it performs incredibly well on color film or digital cameras. It's also reasonably sharp towards the edges. So yeah, it definitely performs better than a 6 element. It also commands a much higher price tag than the 6 element, but not as much as the 8 element, especially the black versions. There's also a bit of a myth where a lot of people try to find the ones that are made in Germany, like this lens here. They usually command a higher price tag because people say they're better built. Well, in a sense that is correct, but some of the later Canadian built are equally well built because they've already gotten rid of some of the plastic pieces inside. So if you got a 7 element that was made in Canada but weighs, I would say, around 150 grams, I think you got quite lucky there, that which means they're built on par with the ones that are made in Germany. Well, being the king of bokeh, of course, you can't talk about this lens without touching on its out of focus area performance. I would actually say this lens, the out of focus area rendering of this lens, as you will see in the next video, is actually quite a bit busier than the Summicron ASPH, which is the version that comes after it. It's actually quite close to the 6 element, but not quite so, because the 6 element has a more defined outlining on the bokeh balls than the 7 element. But they are very similar, but it's even closer to one of the lenses that we're going to talk about in a bit. So yeah, the biggest selling point of this lens, I would say, is the form factor. It's really, really small. It's really, really light. So easy to carry it around, very smooth to focus, and it's sharp enough once you stop it down a little bit. And that is probably why this is a cult lens these days, and a lot of people swear by it rather than the Summicron ASPH. Okay, so next up is the Summicron ASPH right here. The Summicron ASPH actually comes in 2 versions. The version 1 has 8 aperture blades. The version 2 has, I believe, 9 or 10, a little bit more. Optical quality wise, they are essentially the same. And of course, there are special versions of this lens, like what you see here. This is an anniversary edition of the Summicron aspherical that mimics the design of the 8 element. And it's so heavy because it's made out of brass. But if you actually compare the 8 element with it, you can see that how much bigger this lens has gotten. And that's one thing I think Leica has really lost it in the last few years, is I tend to believe that people choose the Leica M system for its portability, and people value Leica lenses for its performance in a much smaller package than their SLR counterparts in the past. But Leica has been making their lenses bigger and bigger, like this Summicron ASPH here. If you say compare the Summicron ASPH with the 7 element, there's a huge size difference between them. Let's be honest here, there's not that big of a difference between the performance of these two lenses, and you'll see that in our next video. The only advantage I can think of with the ASPH, it's a tiny bit sharper towards the edge of the frame and wide open, by the way, because stopping down to f2.8 and f4, you're not going to find any difference among any of these lenses. And another point is it's got a little bit smoother bokeh than the 7 element at a huge cost of size and weight. And that's probably why this lens is actually, I've made a video about it before, but I consider this lens as the best value Leica Summicron lens right now, because the price of these lenses in the second-hand market are usually on par with the 6 element, which is among the lowest. Maybe a little bit more expensive, but definitely a lot cheaper than the 7 element and the 8 element. So yeah, if you don't really mind that extra size and weight, I would say this is a good buy. And funny enough, this is also Leica's longest running Summicron lenses. I believe it started in the 1990s and carried all the way through to the 2000s, and Leica is even producing this right now. But that being said, several years ago, Leica introduced one of their breakthrough lenses, and that is the 35 APO Summicron lens. This lens is very special because it's the first time Leica has put close focus capability into their M-mount lenses, even though you can't really enjoy it with your film cameras. But with a digital camera with live view and visual flex, you can focus this lens all the way down to 0.3 meters. So that is a huge change. And also optically, this lens is perfect. I mean perfect. Wide open, it's sharp corner to corner. Its bokeh is very smooth. There's no outlining in the bokeh ball. I would even go so far as to say the rendering of this lens is too modern that it has lost a bit of charm of some of the older lenses here with those crazy bokehs. But for Leica, I think it is indeed time to update their almost 70-year-old Summicron lens lineup, because all these Summicrons that I've mentioned before, they actually performs more similar than different until this APO Summicron here, which trumped all these previous Summicrons in every single way. Of course, it comes with a cost. Not only talking about the price tag of this lens, but also the size and weight of this lens. It might not look that bigger than the regular Summicron with the lens hood on, but if you take the lens hood off, you can see that this lens is actually quite a bit longer, quite a bit larger than the previous Summicron ASPH. So yeah, again, Leica has made a fantastic lens optically, but inevitably they made the lens quite a bit larger. So I'm not too sure. I guess if you're after perfect optical quality, then this lens might be it. This is the end of the road, do all, be all, godlike 35 Summicron that you should be looking for. But last but not the least, as I mentioned, there's one more lens here which renders like the Summicron 7 element, which is also lightweight and tiny size-wise like the 7 element, as you can see here, and that is the Voigtlander 35mm f2 Ultron. I've done a video about this lens before, but I've only compared it with the Summicron ASPH. Man, I made a huge mistake there because I should have compared it with the 7 element, and you're gonna see that in the next video, because this lens essentially is a modern incarnation of the 7 element at a fraction of the cost. Why do I say that? Well, it's sharper than the 7 element, it's more contrasty than the 7 element. The bokeh rendering of this lens is very much like the 7 element, which is a little bit on the busier side. But if you like, old school rendering, if you like that, a little bit more defined outlines in the bokeh balls, this is the lens for you. As a matter of fact, it's also one of the smallest lenses here, being at f2, and it comes with this beautiful black paint on brass, which I don't think any of the other lenses comes with it. Oh wait, the Summicron ASPH actually has a special version which costs, I know, $7,000-8,000 that comes with black paint, and this is like $700-800. So at 1/10 of the cost of the Summicron ASPH, you get a overall better lens, I would say. It's because it's also sharper than the Summicron. I like its rendering more than the Summicron. The only downside though is this lens is not as smooth as the Leica lenses. And also a lot of people find the steel rim in the front here annoying, which I don't. I quite like it. You can put a very beautiful lens hood on it actually. If you put the lens hood on, as you see here, it's beautiful. Yeah, so I will talk more about the Voigtlander in the next video when it comes to optical performance, but essentially I am trying to do this unbiased comparison of all these different Summicron lenses. If you think you will enjoy that content, please subscribe and maybe hit the notification bell so you'll be able to watch the video as soon as I publish it. Last but not least, I've seen some comments before saying I'm always bashing on Leica glasses and I'm always saying good things about Voigtlander lenses. Am I deliberately making Leica lenses look worse than Voigtlander lenses? Well, just look at what I got here, right? I've invested so heavily in Leica glasses. Of course, I want the value of these lenses to go up, not go down because of my review. But in the meantime, I have to tell you guys the truth. And the truth is Voigtlander, and maybe also some of the other brands, has caught up with Leica with modern digital technology and lens designs. I think that is a good thing because it provides people with more choices. It drives competition, and competition always drives price down, and it is always the customers who will be benefited from such competition. So yeah, I really do hope that Leica will give us some more smaller lens options in the future, just like what they did with the 51.2 and 35 steel rim. Although that steel rim lens is definitely not built like the original. So yeah, I'm trying to keep my hypes low because I don't want to get disappointed once again by the Leica new releases. All right, so yeah, let's wrap up for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.